In this section, we want to talk about the appearance of the worksheet. We've already talked about how you can make a cell's content appear bold or italic. We want to talk about underlining, changing the color of the text, changing the color of the text background, putting borders on cells, and a little bit more about alignment. As you recall, we put in the word total in H1 and average in I1. We didn't change the look of those, so let's highlight both of those. We can do this at once, and we'll make them be bold, as are the other entries in row 1. And we might want to align them consistently as the others are aligned to the right. Since we did this at different times, that does raise a point. Very often you'll do your data entry and then change the appearance of it. There's certainly nothing wrong with doing it cell by cell, but often we get the numbers in place, check out the formulas, and then we do our formatting. Information in column A could be made bold also. We can highlight it, click on the letter B. And if we wanted to underline it, we could do that. Probably wouldn't look that good here. Do notice sometimes that when you've got cells selected, as we do here with A2, A3, and A4, the underlining isn't too clear. So sometimes you just click away from an area to see how it will appear. And if we decide not to do that, we could highlight it and underline it. The numeric format here is also in question. All of our entries here are whole numbers, and the profits are whole numbers, as are the totals, but the averages are not. It would make sense here, for the sake of consistency, to have all of our numbers displayed in the same manner. And so what we would do here is highlight all of the numbers. And this part of the formatting toolbar gives you some basic tools. Now, do be reminded, and we will see later, that there is much more depth to this capability than we see on the toolbar. But the toolbar handles much of what we want to do on the spot. For example, if these numbers do represent dollars, we could click on currency style and see dollars in place, the dollar symbol, the currency symbol in all examples. Notice also that we see 2 decimal points being displayed. That's standard. And in column H, we actually have commas, since those numbers, 2 of the numbers, go over 1,000. If we didn't want to show the decimal places here, we could choose the button right here that says decrease decimal. If I click that once, you'll notice that only 1 decimal place is displaying. That would be a little bit unusual for a currency. Click again to decrease these so that they look like this. Now, some people might say, well, do you need dollar signs everywhere? I mean, isn't it implied if you have dollar signs one place, not another? Well, this choice is referred to as comma style. If we were to click on this, you would see there are decimal places, 2 decimal places, there are commas, but no dollar signs. And so what we do sometimes is we make one selection and then highlight a smaller range, and perhaps what would make sense here is to put in the dollar sign. And by implication, rows 3 and 4 also are currency type information. Now, behind the scenes is a command called format cells. We'll look at this later, but I just want to alert you to it now. Format cells number, which gives you a variety of choices that we don't normally see in the toolbar. So I'm going to click OK now, but we will come back to this a little later. And you'll see that there are other categories here, too, that we can talk about. One aspect of information in your worksheet that you want to be sensitive to is the fact that text information is entered in what we call proportional spacing. If I have an entry here that's the letter W 3 times, capital W, and then below it, if I put in 3 I's, you see the obvious difference there. The W's do take up more space. If I were to put in a number, for example, in cell B5, I'll put in the number 1 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, hit enter. And in the cell below it, I'll put in the number 8, which is wider, 4 times. You'll see that they take up the same amount of horizontal space. And that's the way you would want it to be, so the decimal points will line up. Now, some people occasionally center numbers. I would strongly advise against it. I'll do it here just to show you the effect. I'll highlight these cells. and use centering. And notice how Excel prevents you from centering information that has formats here. But in this case, it centers the information. But since we line up numbers from, we've been told since the second grade we line them up on the right-hand side, it's inappropriate to center numbers unless perhaps they're being used as ID codes, and it doesn't make a lot of difference. So by default, when you enter numbers, they're automatically right aligned. Let's just keep them that way. Now, we don't need this data here. It was put in for example. So we could do one of two things. We can highlight it and hit delete. We showed you how to do that earlier. We can also erase this information by dragging from the lower right-hand corner across the cells and releasing the mouse button. Information is deleted that way also. Our worksheet now has a more standard appearance, but let's talk about a few more possibilities here. Along the right-hand side of the formatting toolbar, you have what's called a borders tool, a fill color, and font color, which refers to text. If, for example, if you were going to print this with a color printer and you wanted to focus on the profit row, you could highlight some or all of this data. And if you point to the bucket, if you wanted to use the color that's already visible there, for example, yellow, which on our screen is what we see, if we click on yellow, that background will appear yellow, and to see it better, I'll click just away from it somewhere. And the background is yellow. If you wanted a different color, you highlight these cells. If you click on the arrow to the right of the bucket, you'll see a choice of colors. And if we wanted a background color, say a light green, we could click on that. And notice how when you do make a choice here that the bucket color now has light green. Assuming you might want to use that again somewhere, maybe you want these to be light green, you could highlight those and just click on the bucket itself. So the bucket refers to cell background. It's called fill color. The button to the right refers to font color. So if, for example, if I wanted the font color inside of these to be yellow on a green background, I click the arrow there and choose yellow, and we see the result there. I think you might have a sense already of how you could overdo this or make a bad color choice. That's certainly up to you as to how you want to do that. Now, it could be after you've seen this, you looked at it for a while, maybe you even print it out, you say, well, that doesn't look so good. There are certainly ways to go back and format these cells again so that they have white backgrounds. But